the Plaistow horror, when a 13-year-old's dark secret was finally revealed. #1 Opening. The shovel hit concrete once, then silence, the kind that presses on your chest. No one spoke. The excavation crew stood frozen, tools suspended midair like the world had just paused. Detective Sarah Morrison watched their faces change, color draining, pupils dilating, that universal human response to finding something that shouldn't exist. This was Plaistow, New Hampshire, August 2019. The air smelled like cut grass and gasoline from a neighbor's lawnmower 3 houses down. Ordinary summer sounds, ordinary summer day. Except nothing about this moment was ordinary. The backyard looked like 1,000 other backyards in working-class New England. Rusted trampoline in the corner, forgotten bike with deflated tires, patches of dead grass where a garden was supposed to be but never happened. Inside that house, sitting at a scratched kitchen table with a juice box and a coloring book, was Dylan Pierce, 13 years old, brown hair that needed cutting, wearing a Minecraft t-shirt and gym shorts. He'd been the one to tell them where to dig. Morrison moved closer to the excavation site, 3 feet down, maybe less. The soil was darker here, disturbed, wrong. "Detective," the lead excavator's voice came out hoarse. "We need to stop, you need to see this first." Morrison pulled on latex gloves, stepped to the edge of the hole. Fabric, blue fabric, the kind that doesn't belong in soil. She crouched down, swept away dirt, centimeter by centimeter. More blue fabric, a shirt, and beneath it something pale that made Morrison's jaw tighten. She stood, pulled out her phone. "We have remains," she said, no emotion, facts only, juvenile female approximately 3 feet deep. Through the kitchen window she could see Dylan, still coloring. The social worker sat beside him trying to look calm. Dylan finished coloring SpongeBob's face, reached for a red crayon. Morrison's phone buzzed, text from Officer Webb inside. "He just asked if we found his lunchbox too," said he buried it with her. 42 days, that's how long Emma Chen had been missing. Nobody vanishes in 2 blocks. Except Emma had. And now they knew why. #2 Establish loop. They said it was impossible. That's what everyone would repeat later in interviews, in courtrooms, in therapy sessions that stretched across years. Impossible for a child that age. But impossibility doesn't erase evidence. Emma Chen had vanished on June 17, 2019. A Tuesday, sunny, safe. Her mother asked her to run to Quick Stop Grocery 2 blocks from their house. Emma grabbed $20, put in her earbuds, walked out the door at 3:47 p.m. Security footage showed her entering the store at 3:52 p.m. She bought milk, bread, and Skittles, made a joke about the weather with the clerk. She left at 3:58 p.m. She was never seen alive again. The first 48 hours were textbook, massive search effort, volunteers, helicopters, search dogs, FBI involvement, Emma's face everywhere, news broadcasts, telephone polls, social media. Lynn and David Chen cooperated fully. DNA samples, opened their home, let investigators dig through Emma's room, computer, phone records. Nothing suggested she'd run away. Good student, quiet, normal 14-year-old girl. Who evaporated between a grocery store and her house. The investigation expanded, sex offenders interviewed, surveillance footage analyzed frame by frame. Emma had walked into a 30-second gap between cameras. And disappeared. For 6 weeks that's where the case lived, in that impossible gap. Until August 2nd. Until Dylan Pierce walked into Plaistow police station with his mother and asked to speak to someone about Emma. Carol Pierce thought her son had information, maybe he'd seen something, he was a neighbor, same street. What she didn't expect was for her son to sit down, fold his hands on the table and say, "I know where Emma is, because I put her there." Officer Marcus Webb thought it was a false confession at first, they happen in high-profile cases. But then Dylan said, "She's in my backyard under the garden area. I had to dig pretty deep because I didn't want animals to smell her." Carol Pierce screamed, not loud, quiet, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper than lungs. The question haunted everyone, How could a 13-year-old boy murder a 14-year-old girl, hide her body for 6 weeks, maintain perfect composure while search parties walked past his house, and then confess like he was turning in a lost wallet? What kind of child does that? #3 for CTA. If you think this ends like every other story, it doesn't. Subscribe now, because what comes next will make you question everything you thought you knew about innocence, childhood, and how far darkness can reach into young minds. The truth waiting in that backyard wasn't just about one boy's secret. It was about how evil doesn't wait for adulthood to take root. #4 Main body: The Descent. # Normal world. Plaistow sits in Rockingham County, New Hampshire. Population just over 7,000. The kind of town where Friday night football matters, where everyone knows the cashier at the grocery store by name. Elm Street was typical Plaistow: working-class families, kids riding bikes until streetlights came on, basketball hoops in driveways, American flags on porches. The Chen family had lived there for 8 years. Lynn worked as a dental hygienist. David managed a warehouse. Emma was their only child. Quiet kid, loved to draw, wanted to be a graphic designer someday. She had 3 close friends, mostly B's in school, some A's in art, wasn't into sports, preferred reading to parties. 3 houses down lived the Pierce family. Carol Pierce worked 2 jobs: Dunkin' Donuts mornings, Target evenings. Dylan's father hadn't been in the picture since Dylan was 4. Dylan was her only child too. By all accounts, he was a normal kid, a little awkward socially, preferred video games to sports. Teachers described him as quiet, polite, turned in homework on time, never in trouble. He and Emma weren't friends exactly, different grades, but they'd known each other for years, same street, same bus stop when they were younger. Carol would later tell investigators that Dylan had mentioned Emma a few times, said she was nice, that she'd helped him once when bigger kids were teasing him. No red flags, no warnings, no obvious signs that something was broken inside a 13-year-old boy. But beneath the surface, something already was. # The INCITNG moment. June 17th started normal. Dylan woke up at 10:30 a.m. summer vacation, ate cereal, played Fortnite for 3 hours. His mother was at work, wouldn't be home until after 9 p.m. He was alone in the house. At 3:45 p.m. Dylan went outside. Later he'd say he was bored, wanted fresh air. Emma Chen left her house at 3:47 p.m. 2 minutes later. What happened in those next minutes would remain Dylan's secret for 42 days. But reconstruction later revealed pieces. Emma walked past Dylan's house at approximately 4:04 p.m. Dylan was in the driveway. He called out to her, said hi. Emma, being polite, stopped, pulled out one earbud. Dylan asked if she wanted to see something cool. He'd found a bird's nest in his backyard, baby birds. Emma hesitated. She had groceries, milk that needed refrigerating. But it was Dylan, neighbor kid, harmless, and it would only take a minute. She followed him around the side of the house, into the backyard, where no cameras could see, where no one would hear. Lin Chen called the store at 4:30 p.m. Had Emma left? Yes, the clerk said, almost half an hour ago. Lin called Emma's cell, straight to voicemail. By 5:00 p.m. Lin was in her car driving the route, looking, calling Emma's name. By 5:30 p.m. she called the police. By 6:00 p.m. officers were knocking on doors, including Dylan Pierce's door. Carol wasn't home. Dylan answered, polite, concerned, said he'd seen Emma earlier. She'd walked past while he was outside. He'd waved, she'd waved back. That was all. The officer thanked him, moved to the next house. Dylan closed the door, went back inside, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV. # escalation. The search started immediately. By nightfall, there were over 50 people searching. Dogs picked up Emma's scent from the grocery store, followed it down Maple Street, onto Elm Street, and then, nothing. The trail went cold. The FBI arrived the next morning, set up in the high school gym, brought in technology, resources, expertise. They interviewed everyone on Elm Street, including Dylan, this time with his mother present. He told the same story, saw Emma, waved, that was all. Agent Patricia Meadows noted, subject calm, cooperative, appropriate affect, no deceptive indicators observed. Dylan was 13, he was a witness, not a suspect. The investigation widened, sex offenders within a 50-mile radius were interviewed, all cleared. Surveillance footage was pulled from everywhere, analysts watched hundreds of hours. The 30-second gap remained, Emma walked into it, didn't walk out. Lin Chen appeared on local news, begged for Emma's return. The story went national, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. All noise. Meanwhile, 3 houses down, Dylan Pierce rode his bike, played video games, ate dinner with his mother. Carol noticed he seemed quieter, asked if he was okay. Just sad about Emma, he said, I hope she's okay. Carol hugged him, told him the police would find her. Dylan nodded. What Carol didn't know was that every night before bed, Dylan looked out his window at the backyard, at the spot where the garden was supposed to be, at the fresh earth he'd moved by hand, at the secret that lay 3 feet down. And he felt nothing. 4 weeks passed, the story cycled out of national news, tips slowed, the FBI packed up, search parties stopped. Lin Chen stopped sleeping, David stopped talking. Detective Morrison took over the case in week 5, fresh eyes. She re-interviewed everyone, including Dylan. This time she noticed something small. When she asked Dylan about the day Emma disappeared, he said he'd been playing video games all day, didn't go outside much. But his earlier statement said he'd been outside, had waved to Emma. Morrison noted the discrepancy, asked him about it. Dylan's face didn't change. Oh yeah, I forgot, I did go outside for a little bit. The story stayed consistent from there. But Morrison pulled Dylan's phone records. He'd been playing online games from noon to 3:30 p.m. Then nothing, no activity until 7:45 p.m. 4 hours unaccounted. Morrison requested a search warrant, the judge denied it, insufficient probable cause. She kept digging anyway. Then in week 6, Dylan made a mistake. # the breaking point. August 1st, a volunteer named Bate Torres was going door to door with new flyers. She knocked on the Pierce house, Dylan answered. Bate handed him a flyer, fresh photo of Emma. Dylan took it, looked at it, and said, she was really nice, it's too bad. Bate nodded, started to leave. Then Dylan said, do they know how she died yet? Bate froze, what? Dylan's eyes widened, I mean, if she died, I don't know, I just assumed. Bate smiled awkward, we're still hopeful. Dylan nodded, yeah, of course. Bate left, got in her car, sat there for 5 minutes, heart pounding. Then she called Detective Morrison. He said died, not if she's hurt, he said how she died. Morrison pulled everything, every statement, every timeline, every piece of evidence. The day after Emma disappeared, trash pickup happened. The Pierce house put out 1 bag, normal. But 2 weeks later, they'd put out 3 bags, unusual for a household of 2. Morrison had enough, the inconsistencies, the word choice, the gap. She went to the DA, laid it all out. The DA agreed, 1 more interview. Morrison called Carol Pierce, said she had follow-up questions, routine. Carol brought him in the next morning, August 2nd. They sat in interview room B. Carol on one side of Dylan, Morrison across the table. Morrison started gentle, then, Dylan, can you tell me again about the day Emma disappeared? He repeated the same story. What time did you go outside? I don't remember exactly, afternoon. Your phone records show no activity from 3:30 to 7:45 p.m., 4 hours, what were you doing? Dylan shrugged, just hanging out, riding my bike maybe. Did you talk to Emma? No, just waved. Morrison leaned forward, Dylan, did Emma come into your yard that day? Silence long, heavy. Carol shifted, what are you asking? Morrison kept her eyes on Dylan, did she come into your backyard, Dylan? Dylan's hands started to tremble, slightly. No, he said. Morrison waited, let the silence build. Then, Dylan, we're going to search your backyard, we have equipment that can see underground. If Emma is there, we'll find her, this is your chance to tell us first. Carol stood up, this is insane, we're leaving. Morrison didn't move, Dylan. Dylan looked up, made eye contact, and smiled. Not a big smile, small, almost apologetic. She's by the garden, he said, where my mom was going to plant tomatoes. The room went silent. Carol made a sound sharp broken. Dylan's smile faded. Emma, that's what you wanted to know, right? She's in the backyard. Carol was screaming now. An officer led her out. Dylan sat alone with Morrison. Can I finish my game? He asked. #5 second CTA. Most people would scroll past stories like this. That's exactly how warning signs get ignored, how families suffer in silence, how children slip through cracks no one wants to admit exist. Don't be one of them. Subscribe so you don't stay silent when it matters most. Because what happened in Plaistow wasn't just about one boy's darkness. It was about how we see evil, how we define innocence, and how we fail to recognize when both collide. #6 The reveal. They found Emma Chen at 2:47 p.m. on August 2, 2019, 3 feet deep, wrapped in blue tarp, buried where tomatoes were supposed to grow. Emma was still wearing the clothes she'd left home in: jeans, yellow tank top, white sneakers. The milk and bread were buried with her, and a lunchbox, Dylan's lunchbox from elementary school, Spider-Man on the front. Inside the lunchbox, a notebook, spiral-bound, 23 pages. A diary, Dylan's diary. The first entry was dated June 17, 2019, 5:30 p.m. I did it. I actually did it. She came to see the birds and I hit her with the shovel. It was supposed to just knock her out, but she fell weird and stopped breathing. I waited to see if she'd wake up, but she didn't. Mom won't be home until 9. I have time. The second entry, June 17, 8:45 p.m. Finished digging deeper than I thought I'd need. Arms hurt. Used the tarp from the garage. Put everything in with her so they'd know it was me someday, not now, but someday when I'm ready. There were 21 more entries, one every few days. June 20th, search helicopters today. They flew right over. I waved. July 4th, fireworks tonight. Emma would have liked them. She liked art, colors. I wonder if she saw colors when she died. July 28th, I think I want to tell someone, not because I feel bad, I don't, but because keeping a secret this good feels wasteful. The final entry was dated August 1st. I told that volunteer lady something stupid, said how did she die instead of if. Detective will figure it out now. Good, I'm ready. I want people to know I could do this, that I'm not like other kids, I'm better. The entries were clinical, detached, no remorse, no guilt, just observation. The medical examiner determined cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head, single blow, likely with a shovel. Emma had died within minutes. Dylan had struck her from behind, she never saw it coming. Then he dragged her body to the spot he'd already chosen. He'd been planning it, the diary revealed, not specifically Emma, just someone. He'd wanted to know what it felt like, to kill, to hide, to win. Emma was opportunity, wrong place, wrong time, wrong neighbor. The forensic team found something else. In the soil near Emma's body, a dead bird, a robin, neck broken. Dylan had lied about the bird's nest. There were no baby birds. Just one dead adult robin he'd killed 3 days before Emma. Practice. After burying Emma, Dylan had taken a shower, changed clothes, put his dirty clothes in the wash, cleaned the shovel, returned it to exactly where it had been. Then he'd ordered pizza, ate while watching TV, played video games until his mother came home. Carol had kissed his forehead, asked about his day. Good, he'd said, pretty boring. No stuttering, no nervousness, no tells. He'd been 13 years old, and he'd committed the perfect crime. Or would have if he hadn't wanted to be caught. #7 Aftermath. The trial was closed to media, juvenile case, Dylan's identity protected by law. He was charged as a juvenile too young for adult court, first-degree murder, desecration of a body, evidence tampering. He pleaded guilty, no trial, just sentencing. The psychologist's report was damning. Dylan showed no remorse, no empathy, no emotional response to Emma's death. When asked if he understood why what he did was wrong, he said, "Because the law says so." Not because Emma had a life, had a family, had dreams. Because the law said so. The judge sentenced him to the maximum juvenile penalty, detention until age 21, 8 years. He'd be released in 2027, age 21, an adult, free. Lynn and David Chen attended every hearing. watched the boy who'd killed their daughter fidget in his chair, ask for bathroom breaks. Lynn wanted to speak the victim impact statement, but when the moment came she couldn't. David read it instead. Emma was our light. She was kind, gentle, creative. She was 14 years old. She had a whole life ahead of her, and this boy took her because he was bored, because he wanted to know what it felt like. Our daughter died for curiosity, for nothing. Dylan looked at his hands, said nothing. The judge asked if he had anything to say. Dylan stood. I'm sorry for your loss. Practiced, rehearsed, empty. Lynn screamed. Guards escorted her out. Carol Pierce tried to visit Dylan 3 times in juvenile detention. He refused to see her. She wrote letters. He never responded. She sold the house, moved 2 states away, changed her name. In interviews later, I don't know what I missed. He was my son. I loved him, but the person they arrested, I never knew that person. The Chen family never moved, stayed on Elm Street. Lynn wanted to be close to the place Emma had last been alive. The garden where Emma was buried was filled in, covered with concrete. A small memorial was placed there, stone plaque with Emma's name. Plaistow changed. Parents watched their children more carefully. Neighbors weren't automatically trusted. Because if a 13-year-old could do this, a quiet, polite, normal kid, then who else could? Dr. Shaw's report raised questions the criminal justice system couldn't answer. Can a child be born evil, or is evil something learned? Dylan had no history of abuse, no trauma, no clear trigger. Carol had been loving, present despite working 2 jobs. Some children are simply wired differently. The capacity for empathy doesn't develop normally. It's neurological, biological, not a choice. But Dylan had chosen to act on it. At age 21, assuming good behavior, Dylan Pierce would walk free. No criminal record as an adult, juvenile files sealed. He could get a job, an apartment, a driver's license. Move next door to anyone. And no one would know. Lynn Chen started a foundation, Emma's Light, advocating for changes in juvenile justice laws. The laws haven't changed. Dylan is still in detention. He'll be released in 2027. He's now 19 years old. In recent therapy evaluations, when asked about Emma, he says, I know I'm supposed to feel sorry, I've learned that, but I can't, I don't know how. The therapist asked, if you were released tomorrow, would you kill again? Dylan thought about it. Probably not. I already know what it feels like. Probably not. #8/3 CTA. If this story shook you, don't just move on. Subscribe so cases like this don't fade into forgotten headlines, so victims' names mean more than their deaths, so the uncomfortable questions keep getting asked. And if you won't, at least tell us why in the comments. Maybe silence has its reasons. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's how children like Dylan happen, when we choose comfort over truth. When we refuse to see darkness until it's too late. #9 Ending. Dylan Pierce will be released in 3 years. He'll be 21 years old, an adult by law, free by sentence. Emma Chen will still be 14, forever. That's how this ends, not with justice, not with understanding, not with closure. But with a question that haunts everyone who knew this case. What do you do when evil is too young to be held accountable? When the law says a child deserves a second chance, but the child feels nothing for the first one they destroyed. When rehabilitation requires remorse, but remorse requires empathy that was never there. There's no good answer, just the knowledge that in 2027, somewhere in America, a young man who killed at 13 will walk free. He'll look normal, act normal, say normal things. And somewhere inside where empathy should live, there will still be nothing. Emma's mother visits her grave every Sunday, brings fresh flowers, tells Emma about her week. She doesn't talk about Dylan anymore, doesn't say his name. Because some silences aren't about forgetting. They're about refusing to give darkness more space than it's already taken. Emma Chen was 14 years old, she liked art, she was kind, she had dreams. And she's gone. That's the only truth that matters. #10 Future Tease. But if you think this case was the darkest involving a child we've covered, you haven't heard what happened in suburban Connecticut, where age meant nothing, where the evidence took 9 years to surface, and where the question wasn't whether a child could kill, but how many times before someone finally believed it was possible.